kasama na natin si Sonia Belisario, Eric Magbuo Dalangin, and Dory Resurrection. Art Bautista, kumusta na po kayo? Sabi ni Art. Still alive and kicking, Art. Praise the Lord. Amen. George Pineda, the third. Good evening. Sabi niya, Dory Resurrection, Blessed Wednesday po. Father Randy and classmates. Isagani, Austria. Ana Tan. Maria Uldarica, Eva Aure, good evening, sabi niya. Martan, to all, good evening. Ito Banzon and Doms Bal. Ning Liarenas, good evening po sa lahat. Juliet De Vibar C. Please comment sa ating sound. Dolly Medina, good evening, batchmates, sabi niya. Terry Enriquez, Erickson Pidlaowan, Albert and Freda Hemora, present po. Brother June Buena, Baby C. Kamaklang, Shoni De Guzman, Sok Galvan Osorio, Su Nelia, loud and clear in Chita di Eterna. Wow. Italian yun. Si Suzette, student sa Rome. So, nasa Roma siya. So, nakakaabot yung magandang sound sa Roma. So, that means umuulan kasi, umaambon kasi. And we all know, katatapos lang ng dalawang typhoons. So, we might be affected by it. Okay na lang yun kaysa naman destruction katulad noong sa Catanduanes and Albay. They need badly our prayers and in words of encouragement, including help kung kaya natin makatulong, why not? Felicitas Lavador Invento, Rosemary, Felix Sumangid Cado, audio and video, okay po, sabi ni Albert Camora. Thank you. Terry Mateo Enriquez, sound and audio, okay. Nessie Valencia, kasama ang Valencia family. At kasama siyempre si Kuya Pino Valencia. Marimel Bautista, Deng Tenko, present, sabi niya. Father Randy, Solanya Garcia Ong, good evening everyone, mga ka-online classmates. And Father Randy, good evening, okay po ang sounds and video. Fair Mans and Ralph Palmahil, Bing Yenko Kasilag, magandang gabi from General Trias Cavite, at nag-hello siya sa CTS and Ad Infinitum Group. Virginia de la Rosa Mendez, sa Davao pa ito, si Sister Virginia. Rosemary, okay, Dang Guerra, Chari Buena, at Evelyn Beltran Rolion. Magandang gabi po, Father Randy. Tagaytay City naman si Evelyn Beltran Rolion. Chito Sullivan, Ses Isaac Caldo, Fermans, Cecilia Flores. Oh, wala kaming Flores. Brother June Carceliar. Mukhang birthday ni Brother June ngayon. Happy birthday. Juliet De Vibar C. Dito po sa Imos, sabi niya. Cloud and clear. Doc Josephine Lumitao, Carmen Cao, and Tere Canon. Vanermi o Minerva Generalao, nakahabol din, sabi niya, nakahabol. Tere Canon, Silvia Rosa Flores, and Lorna Baltazar, Lina V. Barsueno, okay naman po ang sound, niya. Roy Ermitanyo, Maricon Laurentino Dupaya, Dolly Medina, Art Santos Pimentel from Bacoor, Cavite, Christine Go, Felicitas Invento, Rebecca Hara, Ami Ventura, at Pura Peñamante, Lorna Baltazar, Tess Amelie G, Ven Chris, Rayan Andrada, Ereb Tob, magandang gabi yung ibig sabihin nun sa Hebrew, Lina Kakal, Kakal Kalma, kasama si Lito, ang kanyang mister, at Kakal family from Tondo. Yan. Si Marimel Bautista, at Sally Nevilos, Bing Castro, Claro Peñamante, okay naman ang audio at video, Armando Seguis, at Bing Castro. Mamaya na yung iba. Habulin na natin, baka bumigay na naman. So magandang gabi po sa kanilang lahat. I hope you're all okay. Session number 15 na tayo. Ibig sabihin, 15th week. At ang topic natin ngayong gabi ay pangatlo sa mga libro ng former prophets, yung Samuel, no? The books of Samuel. Pero part 1 ito dahil I projected na mga siguro tatlong session itong Samuel. Okay. Well, patalastas sa 13-14 na yung annual convention ng mga Bible scholars sa Pilipinas, Catholic Biblical Scholars, Catholic Biblical Association of the Philippines. May registration. Puntahan nyo lang yung cbap.info. Okay. Andoon yung lahat ng information. www.cbap.info. Okay, for registration. Karamihan sa inyo would be categorized na observer or guest. Kaya doon kayo pupunta sa section ng observer and guest. Magpa-register kayo doon. Merong konting donation, like 300 pesos per participant to help na rin yung association. Usually, we invite scholars from other countries, but this time, we decided na ano lang muna, all Filipino lang muna, local scholars, because of the pandemic. So, 13-14, meaning Friday, Saturday, 10 days from now or less. So let's begin now the books of Samuel. Okay, introductory points. Yung books of Samuel, pag buksan ninyo ang inyong Biblia, may 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, divided into 2 books. But originally, it is really one book. Sa Hebrew text, considered as one. Ang Latin Vulgate ang translate hinati into 2 parts, no? At ang tawag na doon ay hindi nga Samuel, kundi 1 and 2 Kingdoms. Kaya yung mga old translations, old Bible natin, mga before 1960s, ang tawag pa dyan ay una at pangalawang hari. Yung pangatlong hari, yun yung first king ngayon, first book of Kings. Yung second book of Kings, yun yung pangatlong hari. 1, 2, 3, 4 kings. No? So, or kingdoms. Sorry, kingdoms. No? So, but we didn't have that, those Bibles anymore. No? At ang focus ng Book of Samuel, yung dalawa, na we will consider them as one. So, yung mga sessions natin ito ay we will discuss yung the supposed to be two books, pero the narrative can be considered as one. No? Si Samuel, Saul, and David, yun yung protagonist, kumbaga mga bida sa libro na ito, libro ng Samuel. So yung libro ng Samuel, hindi lang tungkol kay Samuel. No? It's about the cycles of or the stories revolving around Samuel, Saul, and David. Pasensya na sa mga kababaihan, bakit nasaan dito yung mga kababaihan? Well, you know, you have to understand the context really. So, nung naghahanda ako, binabasa ko uli yung first book of Samuel. Ang una kong naisip ay mga ladies na kasama natin ngayong na comprised ng siguro 80 or less percent ng ating online Bible students. Karamihan mga ladies. You are reading a book na ang focus ay men and not necessarily good men. Few good men. So, Samuel, Saul, and David with supporting casts. Nandito na yung mga ladies, ibang ladies. So, you have Hannah, which we will discuss later, Eli, the priest, Jonathan, son of Saul, Michal, Joab, Abigail, Abishai, Abner, Bathsheba, Nathan, Amnon, Tamar, Absalom, Mephibosheth, and others. So yung ibang style ng biblical studies ngayon ay focusing on the minor characters. Maganda rin 'yon, no? In fact, there are studies doing that, focusing yung character ng mga minor characters, mga kumbaga mga extra or supporting cast. Hindi supporting cast. So, I think mayroong katulad ni na Deng o si Doc Nati, they are conducting Bible study focusing on women. So yun, I'm sure they focus on the women. No? So maganda rin yun to balance yung predominance ng mga kalalakihan sa kasi yun na nga history ay written ng mga may kapangyarihan from the point of view of those who are powerful. So ganun ang kasaysayan eh. Ang mga bida lang ang naisusulat, ang mga may kapangyarihan. So it's good to see the other side of the coin by studying or focusing on them. So there are different Bible studies na gumagawa niyan. Unfortunately, not in this online Bible study. So I mentioned already kanina yung nandyan, i-message nyo na lang si Deng, mayroon silang women, on Bible study focusing on women in the Bible. And then I think Doc Nati, Pagado, if I'm not mistaken, meron din siya. No? So, you can join the Bible study and to have a focus more on these characters. Ang antagonist, kontrabida sa libro na ito would be the Philistines. We thought they were already eradicated in the book of Joshua and Judges, but no, they are the perennial enemy or ang tinik, sabi na thorn ng mga Israelita. So you have already the main characters revolving around three men, Samuel, Saul, and David, with supporting cast, of course, and the main main antagonist, kontrabida, would be the Philistines. Now, let us talk about the Philistines. Let us know the enemy, or let us appreciate yung Philistines. But rather than thinking them now as enemy, titignan mo natin ang saan sila nanggaling, anong kasaysayan nila. Well, this is a what do you call this, satellite map ng Israel. Once again, Dead Sea, Sea of Galilee, Mediterranean Sea. Okay? Across the Mediterranean, Europe, Turkey, Greece, and then up even western to the west would be the Italy. So then down here, of course, would be Egypt. So the Philistines come from the west. They cross. They are sea peoples. Mga hindi mga badyaw kasi they are very cultured, as I will give to show later. Yung mga Philistines. Yung name na Philistines, dyan kinuha yung word na Palestine. I think it was the Romans who later on would call the land of Israel as maybe pang-mak nila, to mock Israel. So they named the land as Palestine, which is of course a bastardization of the word Philistines, the sea people. So they come from here, okay, cross there and inhabit the better part, the shore, near which is the better part of Israel, no? Magaling sila. So they settled dito sa malapit sa dagat. Okay, you have malapit sa magagandang place, no? So makikita niyo naman hili na dito yung kung dito yung Jerusalem, makikita ninyo na talagang bulubundukin na, no? Ang hirap na yan na mabuhay ang mga pananim. So you will see there the greener part. This one, they will inhabit this area. So, the Philistines. No? Then, dito yung another map, no? Wherein you will have the Mediterranean Sea, and then the different cities of the Philistines na in-establish nila. You have Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, Gath, si Goliath from Gath, Ekron, no? So, and then even somewhere in the Shiloh, they still have occupied it, no? Even Yebus. So, makikita ninyo na they are not only isolated here sa malapit sa dagat, but also in some other parts of so yun ang magiging depende hanyo pagtingin ninyo problema ng Israel. Now you will see here, this is a fresco wall, no? A mural painting na natagpuan sa Egypt, na and portraying yung mga captives na Philistines, no? So mural fresco ito tawag yan, mural painting nung unang panahon. Siguro pinapaint nila kasi minsan yung bahay ng mga palasyo ng mga hari, tapos na discover yun somewhere in Egypt, and they are identified as Philistines who were captured by the Egyptians. The value of this is that we have of course the image, face, mukha ng mga Philistines. No? Kita niyo yung headdress nila. Hindi nagsusot ng headdress ang mga Israelita dahil headdress means symbol of more advanced culture. Sila yung mag-introduce ng paggamit ng bakal, iron, kaya nga beginning of Iron Age na din. No? So they are known for introducing the use of bakal, of iron. So, makikita ninyo, for example, mga so-called bracelets nila. No? Then, these are the paths recovered or sa digging na archaeologists. No? Makikita nyo na napakagaganda yung kanilang art. No? Bichrome na. Ibig sabihin ng yung bichrome, monochrome, one color, bichrome, two color na. So, yung Israel, monochrome lang pag gumawa ng kanilang banga. No? At napakasimple yung banga nila. No? Yung banga nila, walang hawakan, dull. No? Para makikita ninyo, meron na silang mga tulad nito. No? Colored rim na ano na siya, complicated ang pagkagawa. No? So, makita nyo yung, you see it from the point of view na hindi enemy sila. These people are cultured, no? Edukado. I-compare mo na lang yung dalawa. No? Dito yung pottery ng Israel, monochrome, no? Na natagpuan sa Israelite yung habitation or sa yung tel, ito yung natagpuan nila na sa mga sites ng Philistine na pottery. Makikita nyo, talagang napaka-gaganda yung art nila. Polychrome na nga ito, hindi na lang bichrome. Tatlo ang kulay ng ginamit. Tapos makikita nyo yung art nila. And this goes back to the Iron Age. You can just imagine, meaning 1,200 yung late Bronze Age, yung panahon ng mga Joshua and Judges na nabanggit natin. So, around 1,000 years before the time of Christ na ito. Sa Iron Age. Ito yung panahon ng monarchy, later on, papasok ng monarchy ng Israel. So, one can really admire the advanced culture ng Philistines. Sea people. So, hindi lang sila yung parang, I don't like to use the word badyaw kasi baka I'll get the impression na I'm bringing down their ethnic culture. Pero, sometimes we look down on the Philistines kasi nga ito yung portrait na enemy ng Israel, especially dito sa libro ni Samuel, na ma-encounter natin. So that's the other side of the picture. Let's go to the literary structure of the literary design of different parts of the book. We will divide them into 7 parts. So 7 parts din yung pagko-comment ko. 7, kaya sabi ko mahaba-haba. 7 parts. No? So, yung part 1, ito yung kapanganakan at pagtawag kay Samuel. So, it takes the first 3 chapters. Yung part 2, magdi-disappear si Samuel for a few minutes or few chapters. Kasi ang story would be around the ark. So, ang tawag dyan ay the ark narrative. Samuel is out from the picture. So suddenly, may isingit na story of the ark. And then, balik si Samuel, but to assist in the decision to have a king. That will be part 3. And I think I can only cover until part 3 this evening. Part 4 would be the decline or the failure or the rejection of the first anointed leader of Israel, and that is Saul, and at the same time giving David the story is also now about David and his rise to power. So in 1 Samuel chapter 13 to 31, that's the end of the first book of Samuel, chapter 31. So yung first book of Samuel, you can subdivide them into 4 na bahagi. One is about Samuel, and then interrupted by the story of the ark, and then again Samuel to introduce Saul as the first of the anointed leader or king, and then yung magsisimulang mag-decline, yung ma-reject si Saul as the leader, and giving, of course, David the story of David to come to the fore and his rise to power. Pagpasok natin ng second book of Samuel, which probably 2 weeks from now, would be the narrative sa paghahari ni David over a united Israel. No? And after that, we will have yung succession narrative na tinatawag, yung palitan ng mga hari in second book of Samuel, chapter 9 to 10. And part 7, second book of Samuel to the very end, chapter 24, would be something like an appendix of other traditions concerning David. So, Samuel, Saul, David, ang first and second book of Samuel. Okay, so let's now begin with part 1. So part 1, birth and the prophetic call of Samuel. Now, most of us, I think, are familiar with that story. Gamit na gamit yung kwento na yan, yung pagtawag kay Samuel sa vocation campaign, kasi nga, yung batang si Samuel, tinawag siya ng Panginoon. Samuel, 3 beses, and then, hindi niya na-recognize yung sinong tumatawag sa kanya, and then, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. That kind of response, na-preserve na rin sa responsorial psalm, sa awit, no? Speak, Lord, your servant. May mga songs na rin na ganyan. Magsalita ka, Panginoon, nakikinig ang iyong lingkod, and so forth, so on. So, it's a warm and a story full of emotions. No? But let us see how the narrator weaves those stories to bring out his point. Now, may I comment, yung mother ni Samuel, the beginning is barren. And that alone, it's a motif in the Old Testament. No? Meaning, we often encounter yung ganong problema, a barren wife. No? And would later on miraculously gives birth, no? through an intervention of the divine. That's very common. You know, Sarah. No? Hanggang kay Elizabeth sa Gospel, meron pa rin tayong barren wife. Siguro magandang i-research bakit yun ang motif na ginagamit. Maybe it could be really true na maraming barren sa in the ancient world. Well, women were not as healthy as before. No? Walang pagkain, lalo pag may famine. So, they go together. Yung famine, walang ulan, walang pagkain, dry, pagtuyo at sinasabi, equals barren wife, barren woman. Dahil tuyot din siya, dry din siya, at hindi siya fertile. So, the two things go together. And the motive of barren wife and a miraculous birth, pag may ganyan kang story, you will expect na yung bata na yan na may papanganak would be some kind of a Wunderkind, sabi ng mga German, no? Wunderkind, wonder boy. Wunderkind, wonder boy. Wunder and German ng wonder, kind ay boy. No? So, mayroong natataging mission yung batang ito. Lahat ng mga bata na miraculously, miraculous ang kanilang kapanganakan, they have a destiny that is extraordinary. Kahit sa mga kwento natin dito sa Pilipinas, no? Or other literature, no? Yung Moses, for example, miraculous birth din yun. Or the Blessed Mother, no? John the Baptist. So it's a motive. No? And now, we know the story that where else, saan pa pupunta ang barren wife? It's the Lord who had closed the womb. Yun yung expression din ng pagiging barren. The Lord had closed the womb. Pag manganak yung babae, the Lord opens the womb. No? It's the Lord who opens the womb. Lalo yung firstborn son. Kaya nga mahalaga yung firstborn son because it's the Lord who opens first the womb. So, yun yung mga metaphors nila or expression nila for barrenness. So, if it is the Lord who had closed the womb, saan ka pupunta? Doon sa tahanan ni Lord. So, to the sanctuary, wala pang temple. So, sanctuary is in Shiloh, one of those sanctuaries identified in the north, no? And praise, and not only praise, makes a vow. Narinig natin yung vow ni Jephthah. So, you can imagine here already na na itong vow ni Hannah, sana hindi naman matulad doon sa vow ni Jephthah. So, you will see that her vow is wiser and more prudent than Jephthah. Kasi ang vow niya is, pag na-win na yung bata, dadalhin niya pabalik sa sanctuary at doon magsisilbi as a offering of that. So, hindi niya susunugin katulad nung ginawa ni Jephthah, burnt offering. That was a rash vow. No? So, is the vow is common also. From the book of Leviticus, you have the so-called Nazarite vow, temporary vow of being dedicated, serving the Lord. And you have seen that in the book of Judges. Another one who made that vow would be Samson, a Nazarite vow. Sabi ng mga ibang experts ng New Gospel, baka dyan nga rin kinuha yung word na Jesus of Nazareth. Maybe not because he came from Nazareth, but because he made a Nazarite vow. Sabi nila. Kasi nga rin, malimit na kung saan kay pinanganak, doon ang tawag sa iyo, no? Not where you grew up. Hindi tinawag katulad ni Mary Magdala. Mary of Magdala, kasi taga Magdala siya, meaning isang lugar sa Galilee. Ang pangalan ay Magdala. No? Or what else? Or you are named after your father. So, si Jesus, ba't tinawag Jesus of Nazareth? Should have been Jesus of Bethlehem. And that is his birthplace and the birthplace of David. Makikita natin mga King David. So, bakit tinawag sa Jesus of Nazareth? Maybe not because of Nazareth, but because of the vow. Maybe he made a vow, Nazir, a Nazarite. So Jesus, who made the Nazarite vow, Jesus of Nazareth. Those are speculations. Biblical scholar, patalastas lang yon. So further studies have to be done about that. But notice how the husband, Elkanah, napaka-supportive sa kanyang wife. No? Strange na gano'n. Usually yung lalaki ang nagdi-dictate ng gagawin. Pero si Elkanah ay tatango-tango lang siya doon sa sinasabi ni dalhin natin sa yes, parang gano'n. You read that part, no? Wherein the husband is parang, sabihin natin, parang under desire. But in a more positive way, supportive sa, hindi siya nagdidictate kung anong gagawin. It was Hannah who was taking all the initiative. Which is not, which is normal sa the mother, no? The mother who takes the initiative, no? Kasi sila yung in charge sa baby, not the son, not the father. No. Then the birth of Samuel, it ends with naming. We will see a lot of that also in the Gospels in the future, no? Na papangalanan. And after the name, ipapaliwanag yung name. So Samuel ang pinangalan, and then Hannah says, because I asked the Lord for him. I asked the Lord for him. So yung mga marunong ng Hebrew at mga biblical scholar, question mark agad yung is, ang Samuel has nothing to do with ask. Shema Israel. Di ba yung prayer na, hindi tayo nagdasal kanina pala. Shema Israel, meaning Shema is the listen. That's the name of Samuel. Shema El, meaning the Lord has listened to me, something like that, no? There's nothing to do with ask. Yung word na ask is found in the name of Saul. Sheol. Sheol is to ask. So, bakit ganon? So, question mark na naman. So, you speculate that perhaps, hindi 100% sure, perhaps, what Israel really asked for was not Saul, but Samuel. Parang, as you will see, Saul would really be presented here as a tragic figure. So maybe from the naming already, it was not Saul that they were really asking, but it was for Samuel. Now, okay, so that's then the birth, the miraculous birth ends with a hymn. We have seen already 3 hymns, no? 2 hymns very old. Exodus chapter 15, Judges chapter 5, and now 1 Samuel chapter 2. Now those hymns, usually they say, they were incorporated either coming from outside. So, and then they were not really composed for that particular book, but they were already hymns being chanted, and then i-integrate doon sa story. So that you will notice the hymn does not have anything to do about giving birth miraculously. Only verse 5 mentions the wife bears, the barren wife bears 7 sons, sabi doon. Yun lang. The barren wife bears, and then the rest is not about the miraculous birth, no? And something similar to what you have in the Magnificat, which was, of course, the template of the Magnificat, yung awit ni Mary in the Gospel of Luke after yung Annunciation, no? Ang template niya is from this song, from this hymn. Pag babasahin nyo yun, even quickly, you will notice it has nothing to do about annunciation. It's about reversal of fortune. This is a motif malimit, especially sa mga hymns na ganito, reversal of fortune. Yung mayaman, magiging mahirap, yung mahirap, magiging mayaman, yung nasa trono, ibababa, yung wala sa trono, itataas. Yun yung motif ng tinatawag natin na reversal of fortune. Maybe it's a song of those who are oppressed and aspiring that someday their oppression will end, they will be liberated from this oppressive condition, situation, and the Lord will bring them up. Maybe those are the aspirations of ordinary people. Who knows, no? And incorporated here. No. It even mentions a king. Wala namang hari pa. So you notice that it's really a hymn that is coming from outside. Maybe the one who put it there think that Hannah is also making a prophecy about the coming of a king. Maybe, no? Or simply anachronistic, meaning yung writer nakalimutan niya na wala pang hari. So nailagay niya, anachronistic ang tawag doon. Yung ginagawa niyang yung present na nangyayari, ilalagay niya sa past. So that's the song of Hannah. Beautiful song, as I said, especially if you notice yung tinatawag ko reversal of fortune motif. The divine call of Samuel, as I said a while ago, is a sweet story. I've used that many times sa mga young boys na gustong magpare, no? So, lalo pag misa ng mga ganyan, mamimili ka ng mga readings para sa mga grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, anong pipiliin mong story? Yung story ni Samuel. And they like that, yung call ni Samuel, yung Samuel, no? Samuel, three times, no? And, but, hanggang doon lang minsan yung binabasa. Actually, yung divine call of Samuel is not sweet. It's a oracle of judgment. After the call, tinawag siya to pronounce an oracle of judgment. Meaning that the house of Eli, yung priest na nag-host sa kanya, who is in charge of the sanctuary, kasamang kanyang mga anak, who were abusing their authority, yung mga anak, will be rejected. So, minus 2 na tayo sa possible na maging hari sana. Kasi nasa in charge na sila sa isa sa mga core institution ng wala pang hari. Yung pari, may 2 anak, yung pari matanda na, 2 anak, kaso mahilig sila kumain ng matataba at kasi nasabi doon, pinipili nila yung mga inaalay, pinipili nila yung may laman, may karne. Sometimes very trivial, pero it's a symbol of the abuse of authority. No? Okay. So, rejected. Note the reaction of Eli. Reaction ng father. Instead na magalit siya kay Samuel, kasi Samuel, young boy making a pronouncement against the house of Eli, yun yung content nung call sa kanya. Yung speak Lord, your servant, tinuruan pa siya paano sumagot ni Eli, kasi nga hindi alam ni Samuel kung sinong tumatawag sa kanya. Kaya yung pangatlo, sabi niya, tatawag uli, yung sagot mo, magsalita ka, Panginoon, nakikinig ang iyong lingkod. Yung nga, nagsalita. ang salita na yun is against Eli, is a rejection of his house, an oracle of judgment against the house of Eli, the priest, his sons in particular. But note yung reaction ni Eli, very similar sa reaction ni Job, no? Sa iba pang libro ng lumang tipan, nung nawala yung kanyang mga mari-arian, pati mga anak na namatay, no? Ano ang sagot niya? Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I shall go back again. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. If we accept good things from God, should we not accept evil? So, one of submission and what do you call this? Piety, no? Devotion to the Lord. Very similar to the reaction of Eli. Sabi niya, it is the Lord. What is pleasing in the Lord's sight, the Lord will do. It is the Lord. Kung maalala nyo yung favorite, I think this is the ni Cardinal Tagle sa kanyang motto as a bishop ata. Yeah, Dominus est, it is the Lord. Pero yung si Peter yun na nagsabi doon sa Ebanghelyo ni Juan, Gospel of John. Pero here, it is the priest Eli, it is the Lord. What is pleasing in the Lord's sight, the Lord will do. So, alam niya na that particular call is coming from God and he is rejected. His sons are rejected. Part 2. Pahinga muna tayo kay Samuel. Ang story will focus on the ark. Oh, meron palang ark. Sabi na, yung pala buntik natin nakalimutan. Siguro sabi ng narrator, o baka makalimutan nyo na may ark pa rin. No? So, the ark, as we have seen already sa previous discussions natin, is something like a palladium. No? Yung when they go to war, they bring something as a symbol. And something that thing becomes even magical. Or they believe that with the presence of that thing, they will, parang anting-anting. Kung baga ngayon, no? So the ark of God is captured by the Philistines sa Apex, sa Giyera. And that's a symbol na natalo sila because the ark of God was captured. And the presence of the ark is not an assurance of Israel's victory. Kahit kasama nila yung ark, dala-dala na yung ark, kahit nasa unahan pa yung ark, natalo pa rin sila. So, maybe they began to think na hindi automatic na porke kasama nila yung ark of God. It was not an assurance. In fact, they were defeated. And not only that, the ark was captured. And the defeat of Israel is explained later as because of wickedness. We have seen that. No? Na ang dahilan ng pagkatalo is always infidelity to God. So, wickedness. No? You have seen the wickedness of the priests, sons of Eli. So, yun yung impact ng isa sa dahilan. And they represent perhaps the wickedness of those in the battle, the Israelites. In fact, yung capture ng ark, it was made later into a psalm. In Psalm 78, you have a hymn. Sabi ko na nga ba, may mga hymn, even yung the trauma of that defeat, kasama sa hymn. No? So yung psalm kasi, maybe someday we will also have a course on the psalms. They have express a lot of emotions. No? They are prayers, but really emotions, a lot of emotions there, including defeat, including doubts, including like repenting, remorse. So God heard and grew angry, sabi ng salmista. He rejected Israel completely. Sabi ko na, wickedness. So, he forsook the shrine at Shiloh, that is the sanctuary, na sinasabi ko kanina, kung saan nagpakita ang Diyos. The tent he set up among the human beings. He gave up his might into captivity, his glorious ark into the hands of the foe, the Philistines, the capture of the ark. God delivered his people to the sword. He was enraged against his heritage. Fire consumed their young men. Their young women heard no wedding songs. Their priests fell by the sword. Their widows made no lamentation. See, maybe after thousands of years, nung minameditate nila, pinagninilayan nila yung story na yan, someone made a sound, which probably is prayed during the time na they are in distress, or to remind them na nagkasala tayo, so wag nating uulitin na mangyari uli na ganon. So, and the ark is dangerous. Anything holy can be dangerous. Kaya nga, maintindihan nyo yung mga simbahan ng unang panahon, panakot yan eh. Kasi anything holy is, di ba yun ang ating delikado, o may pagka, huwag kang lalapit, no? Halimbawa, doon sa mga bata, o huwag kang maingay, huwag kang magulo, magagalit si Father. So, the priest becomes, is holy, yes, but dangerous. It's part of being holiness. Sa simbahan, sa loob ng simbahan, huwag kang maingay. Kasi sa loob ng simbahan, magagalit ang Diyos. So the holy place can be dangerous. Something like, we have that in our consciousness. Something holy is associated with, be warned. So, the ark is dangerous. Nung na-capture ng Philistines, malas lang nila. The ark was a bad luck for them. Kung saan napunta yung Philistines, may nangyayaring masama. Pati boil, pati saki yan, boil, nabanggit yung boils. Sabi ng mga ibang komentarista, maybe parang bubonic plague. Kung meron ng COVID-19 noon, baka kasama na siya. Plagues of mice, sabi doon, or maybe leptospirosis. But, meaning, kung nasaan man yung ark is malas, is dangerous. Pati yung temple, nilagay nila sa temple nila, nung tinabi kay Dagon, yun yung Philistine god, no? Dagon o Dagon. Outside the Bible, si Dagon is the father of Baal. Sa Ugaritic, sa myth ng ancient world. So, yung Philistine, they preserve that name Dagon, na nakalagay sa Book of Samuel, natutumba-tumba yung pag tinabi sa ark. Hindi naman sinabi ko anong klase, statue ba yun, no? It's not described, no? Maybe also an ark, no? Pero yung portrait minsan ng mga artist, parang statue. Minsan pang ano yan sa mga Roman Catholics na may devotion sa mga saints through statues. So, natutumba-tumba, meaning nagbabaw yung God. Maybe you can just imagine that way. The point is, this ark is a holy ark and it is dangerous. So the ark would be returned. Balik na sa Israel. So, para talagang mapatunayan na talagang itong ark na ito ay ibang-iba, no? sa chapter 6 na tayo, gumawa sila ng test, mga Philistines, tinest nila. Matatalino yung Philistines. Nilagyan nila sinakay nila dun para hilain ng ark, yung dalawang baka na milking cows. May mga anak, ibig sabihin. No? So, kung nilagay nila yung ark para hilain. Kaso yung mga baka, talagang dumiretso sa territory ng Israel, sa Beth Shemesh. So, napatunayan nila na itong ang ark na ito is really something. No? Kasi pag bumalik yung baka, kasi yung baka hindi aalis yan dahil hindi niya iiwan ang kanyang mga anak. Si milking cow, milk cows ang ginamit nila. Ibig sabihin, hindi yan parang nung unang panahon sa probinsya namin, yung mga missionaries namin, pupunta yan sa bundok para magmisa. Wala namang kalsada noon. So, ang gamit nila noon ay kadilakad, sabi nga nila. Kung hindi naglalakad, ay yung sasakay sa kabayo. Kaso yung kabayo, nag-iisa lang naman, di man ganun kadaming kabayo. Kaya yung ginagawa nila, yung gamit nila, sasakay nila, yun ang nasa kabayo. At yung kabayo, uuwi na yun mag-isa. Mauuna na yung kabayo. No? Kasi mabilis maglakad yung kabayo. Nandun na yung mga gamit nila. At talaga naman yung kabayo na yan, dire-diretso hanggang sa kumbento. Marunong na siyang umuwi mag-isa. Tignan yung mga kabayo, matatalino. Samantala yung misyonero, siguro mga 3 oras pa bago makarating kasi bundok nga. Parang ganon. Itong mga baka, hindi sila pupunta sa tahanan sa teritoryo ng Israel. Hindi naman taga sila doon. Hindi nila alam kung ano yung bahay ng mga Israelita. Ba't sila pupunta doon? Pupunta sila kung saan sila sanay. So, sa teritoryo ng Philistines. At hindi lang yan, doon sila pupunta kung saan yung kanilang mga anak, kasi milking cow, naiwan mga anak yan Kaso hindi ganon. Dire-diretso sila sa Beth Shemesh, the territory of Israel. No? So, yun. Ito pala talagang ark of the Lord. No? It's not also an assurance na kung Israelita ka, ay hindi ka na rin ligtas ka na sa ark, sa pagka-danger ng ark is not also. So, winelcome ng mga Israelita, warm welcome ang binigay doon sa pagbalik ng ark, na hinihila ng mga baka. Kaso, may pamilya ni Jeconiah, na killjoy. Masama ang pag-welcome. Hindi siya masaya. So, he was struck dead. Kasama yung kanyang 7 of his family. Sa Hebrew text, sa English translation natin, nakalagay doon, hindi siya masaya. They did not rejoice with people of Beth Shemesh. So, they were struck dead. Pero sa Hebrew, ang nakalagay, because they saw the ark of the Lord. Ang hirap naman yan ilagay sa English. Ba't nakita lang na they were struck dead already? What did they see? That they were struck dead. But the Hebrew text says, they saw the ark of the Lord. Just by seeing it, they were struck dead. Baka may nakita sila sa loob o nag-curious sila kung anong laman ng... Nobody knows what's inside the ark. Of course, we know it's the 10 Commandments, but you see that anything holy, as I said, is also dangerous. Note that departure of the ark from Philistia resembles a new Exodus. Para bang the image of people of God getting out from the land of Egypt, of oppression, parang ganon din nung image ng ark going back to the land, coming from the land of the Philistines. So that's the ark narrative. This is a portrait of this is a very old painting fresco also, a wall, a mural, sorry. Okay, let me focus. Ayan. Fresco ng captivity of the ark by the Philistines in a synagogue in Syria. The name of the synagogue is Dura Oiropos. Meron din doon, it's a church, the oldest church found is in this place also. And the oldest synagogue is also here. That's why here, this one. And the oldest church in Syria. Ito yung, am I correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. But also nasira sa giyera. But you can double check it. Dura, very famous ito na place. Kasi nga, because of the paintings there, mosaic, which dates back to the early church, like 1st or 2nd century. And dito sa synagogue na ito, they portray yung artist sa panahon na yan, no, yung yung dalawang baka, milking cows, the Ark of the Covenant, mga Philistines, no? Ito yung mga natumba-tumba na inyong temple, Dagon, at tumayo na siya nung umalis na yung Ark kasi wala na yung kaway niya. At not before, of course, other things are destroyed. So that's the Dura Oiropos synagogue. Ito yung movement nung ark, no? So the battle was here at Aphek, no? Or Afek, no? And then the captured ark went here to Ashdod, no? And then moved from here to the different Israelite cities. So pinagpasapasahan nila kasi kung nasaan na yung ark, something bad is nangyayari sa kanila. So until babalik sa Beth Shemesh, and then from Beth Shemesh to Shiloh. You know, Mediterranean siya again. Tapos Philistine territory. So that's the ark narrative. Huwag mo na tanungin kung nasaan na yung ark ngayon. It is a matter now of a movie. But it's interesting para mag-develop later on yung interest na hanapin the lost ark, the raiders of the lost ark, mga ganyan. So, it's a good material for movies. But after some time, the ark was no longer important sa narrative. Maiiwan nga siya dito sa art, dito sa, nababagitin siya somewhere in the second book of Samuel, nalalabas ulit siya sa time ni David, kasi si David, ilalagay niya ang ark na yan sa Jerusalem to unite the tribe. So, babalik uli yung story. But after this, pagpapahinga uli yung ark, huwag niyo muna pakialaman yung ark. Let's go back to Samuel. Yan yung ano. So, part 3, Samuel, and back to the story of Samuel, and this time to Saul. Okay, now the story revolves around the demand, the request, depends how you see it, maybe demand to have a king, but to govern the Israel. The people demand that Samuel to give them a king with the following reasons. We have seen already the anarchy in the book of Judges. Yun yung last discussion natin. We ended the night with anarchy. And Samuel cannot be because he's already old. He's Zaken. Pati mga anak niya, anak ni Samuel, na-reject na yung mga anak ni Eli, yung mga anak ni Samuel, rejected din. Si Joel and Abijah, not qualified. Ang reason, and I'm taking now from New Jerusalem Bible, they were seduced by the love of money, took bribes, and gave biased verdicts. Nothing new today. No? You're not surprised. And this is the criteria, you are disqualified. So you make it positive, that will be the criteria of a good leader. That you will not be seduced by the love of money, that you will not take bribes, that you will be just. You will not give biased judgment. Di mo papaboran ang iyong mga kasama sa kabarkada o kamag-anak o so forth so on. So you see the quality of a leader here that they were looking for. It's reasonable, no? So Joel and not the prophet, because there's a prophet named Joel. That's a different one. Not qualified, and they want to have a king like other nations, like other pagaya-gaya, kumbaga, to govern them like other nations. Now, if you are Samuel, you will feel insulted because Samuel is doing that. He was a judge, he's a prophet, he's governing them. Now they want to have a king. Why not Samuel? Maybe you can say he is already zaken. He's retired. He's old. How old is old before? In reality, not exaggerating the numbers. Kasi some numbers of ages in the Bible or years of existence are highly hyperbolical or exaggerated. The earlier the story, the longer the lives of the people were at the time. Yun yung literary style nila. How old is old before? Given yung sa ating pag sinabing old is old, titignan mo yung average ng buhay ng Pinoy. I don't know kung anong average na ng buhay ng Pinoy. 60-something ata, 60 plus. Compared sa Europe, like mga Dutch, naaabot ng mga almost 80 yung average age nila. Ang average age ng ancient world is 40 years old. 40. That's one generation. Kaya nga 40. Malamit nababanggit yung 40 years. Because 40 is counted as one generation. So you must already be old if you are 40. For us today, 40, life begins at 40 pa lang. But that's the ancient world. They died young. So Jesus died at 33 or 30 years old in year 33. So, or depende, maybe 33 or 30 to 33 years old. So is that young or old? That's old. Almost 40 already. So anyway, that's the and you notice that in the book of Samuel there is a tension between they want a king, and once you read carefully the text, there are two strands of tradition that are emerging. One in favor of having a king, a monarchy. The other one not in favor of the monarchy. Pero pag titignan nyo mabuti, there are more indications that the narrator did not like monarchy at all. And I will point that out. Remember, the narrator is the Deuteronomic historian, who composed Deuteronomy, Judges, Joshua, Judges, and then until the second book of Kings. So the hand of the narrator, the hand of the historian is here now, collecting all the materials, and you will see his bias against monarchy, against especially Saul. Now let's see the two traditions. For the texts that are anti-king or anti-monarchy, yung ayaw na may hari, you will see that in the chapter 7 of the first book of Samuel to chapter 8, when the Philistines grew stronger under Samuel, people want a king against the wish of Samuel. Against the wish of Samuel. He did not like to do that. That they should have a king kahit yung they're being threatened by the Philistines. And then until his death, pagdating niya sa farewell speech niya sa chapter 12 of the first book of Samuel, he goes back to that by stating a warning of having a king like other nations. So it's a stern warning that if you have this king, this will happen to you. On the other hand, sa libro ni Samuel, you will also notice there that there are, maybe it's earlier, this is earlier than that, maybe the earlier is really the need for a king. And so you will read some texts that are suddenly, they become in favor to have a king. So you have texts like not in favor, now you have a text that are in favor. What's happening here in the Bible? And biblical, a book sometimes or sections sometimes are like that in the Bible. They grow, there is a literary growth. Kaya huwag kayong magtataka yung Bible minsan sasabihin nyo nagkakakontradict. Ilang beses nagtatanong sa akin, bakit ganito to? Bakit yung ganyan? Ibang verse, iba rin ang sinasabi. Kasi nga, you might have two traditions there, two or three traditions, or the other one was added later. Kasi yun na nga, biblical text grows, sabi nga nila, may literary growth until it reaches its final composition na dadagdagan. Depende sa sitwasyon, depende sa need, depende doon sa so you will notice here na may tension. Yung isang parte ng text ng Samuel very much in favor of monarchy. On the other hand, pati yung narrative about Samuel ay not in favor of the monarchy. So you have a pro-monarchy tradition, and the pro-monarchy tradition might be earlier than the anti-monarchy tradition, so that the anti-monarchy tradition is the work of the Deuteronomic historian. So for example, yung pro-monarchy, makamonarchy, makahari na tradition, in chapter 9 of the book of Samuel, Saul becomes king with a blessing, anointed by Samuel, kahit na secret, but anointed by Samuel. Samuel was refusing, but now here he is secretly anointing. And then the proclamation of Saul as king in Gilgal, that's another sanctuary. So you have pro and anti-monarchy tradition. Let me explain the anti-monarchy tradition, so that you will see that there is a point of the historian, Deuteronomic historian, why he emphasized that. It seems he was not also in favor of monarchy, to have a king. The one who is making the narrator, sabihin na lang natin, yung nag-edit, yung nag-collect, nag-edit ng libro na ito, na suspetya nga natin, siya din ang may gumawa doon sa Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, ito at later on, First and Second Book of Kings. Kaya ang tawag natin doon ay Deuteronomic history. So, pati ang Panginoon objected. So, He presented the Lord as objecting to the king by saying, they, meaning the Israelites, reject me as their king. They are rejecting me as their king. Chapter 8, verse 7. Nung nagko-consult si Samuel, kung anong isasagot niya sa mga tao na humihingi na magkaroon sila ng ari. So, listen to them. Sabi ng Lord, it's not you who is being rejected. Sabi niya kay Samuel, Ako, they are rejecting me as their king. Meaning, the narrator is telling us that even the Lord does not agree. And then, the objection of Samuel, ito ang mangyayari sa inyo pag meron kayong hari, he will cause you a lot of distress. Chapter 8, 11:7, gagawin yung alipin ng ganito, gagawin yung mga anak niyo, mga babae, gagawin niyang ganyan, mga taga-perfume, so and so forth, sundalo, at mga, it will cause you a lot of distress. But then, parang napilitan, the Lord gives in. The Lord gives in to the people, but we know that already the tension there. And what does it mean then? Well, maybe from hindsight, pwede mong sabihin that the monarchy is not part of the Lord's original plan. Was not part of the original plan of God. Which means that may hari man sila o wala, Israel would continue to exist. They will lose their kings in the future, as we all know, until now. But they will not be affected by that. May hari sila o wala, hindi mahalaga. Because the original plan of God is the Lord who is the Lord who is the king, not a human being. So maybe a hindsight yun. And the narrator's objection continues. The narrator's objection continues. He labels Saul not as Amalek. Ang hari, the word hari sa Hebrew ay melek. Yun yung technical, official term ng hari. King. Melek. Kaso si Saul, hindi siya melek. Tawag sa kanya ay nagid. Nagid. Mas mababa kaysa melek. So, pwede mong sabihin, charismatic military leader, something like a judge, shopet, na hindi talaga connected with, so, makikita nyo, pati yung pag-label niya kay Saul is not melek. May tanong noon sa isang Bible quiz ata, in which I was a judge. Ang tanong who is the first king in Israel? Of course, the normal sagot dyan ay Saul. Kaso may nag-complain, may nag-file. Dahil marunong siguro ng exegete, nakarinig siguro ng biblical study na tulad ng ganito. No, he said, first king of Israel is David, not Saul. And then he argues according to this reason. Well, he is right, no? But dahil nasanay na nga na first king of Israel is Saul, okay din yun. Yun din yun. No? So, it depends how you understand Melech and Nagid. But strictly speaking, Saul will not be the first king of Israel. In fact, he will be rejected. It would be David. In fact, he was not called king. He was called Nagid. No? So, emphasizes that Saul is a Benjaminite from the north. We have already seen from Joshua to Judges that the king, we have already given us a feeling that it should come from the south, not from the north, but from the south. Kaya nga, yung Benjaminite, maalala nyo, they massacred, they rebelled doon sa last book of parts ng Book of Judges. Yung nangyaring anarchy sa Benjamin, sa tribe, sa area ng Benjamin yun sa may sa Gibeah, kung saan nanggaling si Saul, Gibeah. So by saying that emphasizing that Saul is a Benjaminite, meaning to say this guy would not be the ideal one. He was tall. He was said to be tall and handsome, but low IQ. Pinaglaruan lang siya. Tall, dark, handsome and never mind, something like that. Tall and dark and handsome, but IQ, question mark. Basahin niyo yung part na ito, ano bang chapter na ito, his servant is even more intelligent. Nung hinahanap nila yung donkey, at anong gagawin nila, yung servant ang nagsasabi ko anong gagawin nila. Oo lang si Saul. So, you see the narrator is making fun of Saul here. No? This guy who is going to lead Israel is tall, is handsome, nag-i-stand out, but mababa. Mababang isip. So, and he was not a shepherd. Israel's king will be a shepherd. Like David. He was a donkey man. Kaya nga yung unang eksena niya ay hinahanap niya yung nawawalang donkey. And he ended up sa territory ni Samuel. So, anointed by Samuel secretly, no witnesses, so may fake, no? Walang saksi, no? So he has to be chosen publicly later. And how was he chosen? Draw lots. Hanggang pupunta na yung lot sa kanya, no? But hindi unanimous yung parang election ng USA ata ito. Some objected. And after that, his kingship needed to be renewed right away. Yung sa Gilgal nga na may renewal of the kingship. Hindi pa nga nagsisimula, mag-renewal na ng kingship. So we have that verse there, Samuel saying, "Come," meaning come, sabi niya kay Saul, "let us go to Gilgal and there renew the kingdom." And he would be presented as a tragic figure later. And we will see more of that. With the rise of David, Saul begins his rapid decline until his ignominious death. So, part 4, Saul's rejection as king and David's rise to power, ay para sa susunod na Miyerkules. Yan. God willing, may the Lord keep us away from all COVID-19 and all illnesses. Typhoons kasama na. Okay? So, thank you very much. At palagay ko, nandito pa kayo. Sabi ni Marilyn Parinas is watching. Si Polly Ereche, Father Randy, manifestation of seeing, dear God, may mga pagninilay na siya. Evangeline Romulo, na late siya, sabi niya, makahabol mo pa naman yan kasi bago ka matulog, i-set mo na siya, pakinggan mo na. Masarap may nagsabi nga na nakakatulog sila lalo doon sa boses ko. Ako pag natutulog, to tell you honestly, kailangan may sound lagi, is either radio or mga lectures na ganyan, i-on mo lang. Parang panglulabay. Sabi ni Telma Tan Mauricio, thank you po, Father. Si Maria Aure, ayan, salamat, nagpapasalamat na ang lahat. So, hanggang dito lang muna. And may the Lord be with you, and may the Almighty God bless you. Keep you away from all harm and evil, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Ito po si Father Randy, nagpapasalamat sa inyong lahat. At parish priest ng Sacred Heart Parish Shrine dito sa Diocese of Cubao. At the same time, Biblical Apostolate Director ng ating diocese. Itong ating Bible study is under the aegis, under the auspices ng ating Bible Apostolate ng Diocese of Cubao, kasama ng ating ngayong gabi yung mga different Bible animators. So, thank you and see you next Wednesday. God bless you all. Bye-bye. Good night.